the Black Christian Nationalist Creed, which is on the back, of the bulletin. Or I guess. Here. I believe
that human society stands under the judgment of one God, revealed to all and known by many names. His creative power is visible in the mysteries of the universe, in the revolutionary Holy Spirit, which will not long permit men to endure injustice, nor to wear shackles of bondage, in the rage of the powerless, when they struggle to be free, and in the violence and conflict, which even now threaten to level the hills and the mountains. I believe that Jesus, the Black Messiah, was a revolutionary leader sent by God to rebuild the Black nation Israel and to liberate Black people from powerlessness and from the oppression, brutality, and exploitation of the white Gentile world. I believe that the revolutionary spirit of God embodied in the Black Messiah is born anew in each generation, and that Black Christian nationalists constitute the living remnant of God's chosen people in this day, and are charged by Him with the responsibility for the liberation of Black people. I believe that both my survival and my salvation depend upon my willingness to reject individualism, and so I commit my life to the liberation struggle of Black people and accept the values, ethics, morals, and program of the Black nation defined by that struggle and taught by the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church.
Extend our hands for prayer invocation. Almighty God, we'd like to thank you for waking us up this morning, for giving us the breath of life, having us here in our right minds. We thank you for this gathering. We ask that you open our minds, clear our hearts, so that we receive the message that you want us to hear, and so that we can understand better how to do your will here on earth. These prayers and all other prayers we pray in the name of the revolutionary Black Messiah, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. We will now have a great Bible class.
Amen.
All right. Sister Shikesh. All right.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I know it looks real full up here, but I had some technology difficulties this morning. Yes, some technical difficulties.
We'll get through it though.
We will. The Bible class that we're going to talk about today is going to be the women of the Bible and the women disciples. Okay?
All right.
Pretty much as I was telling Konada and Takuma, I mean, lately we've been hearing about the kings. This king's been killing that king, and this king's been killing that king, and that king trying to take over that king and all that stuff. So we're going to talk today about women. I mean, as I read the Bible, I just got a lot of loyalty out of the women, that follow Jesus. So we're going to give them their props today.
All right.
Okay,
Well.
amen. All right, we are in the season of Advent. Advent begins the fourth Sunday before Christmas Day.
That's right.
This is a period in which many Christians prepare to celebrate the birth or coming of Jesus. In the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church, Advent is also a period of expectancy for us too. We open ourselves up expecting to receive the power of God. During Advent, we celebrate not only the birth of Jesus Christ, but also the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, the Black Messiah. There are 4 themes that we use for reflection during Advent. That would be hope, preparation, love, and incarnation. Now, when Advent first came up, it was biblical, it was dealing with the Bible, and the nation Israel had been awaiting a Messiah. So, pretty much, they're waiting on the Messiah is how Advent came out. God had made a promise to David that, or to the black nation Israel, that there was going to be a Messiah that was going to come through David as a descendant.
Well,
So, still we're looking at God talking to men, God using men to further his claim. Now, throughout the Bible, women have always had a prominent role in the spiritual life of the black nation.
Okay.
We're going to go back first to the women of the Old Testament. Now, although women in the Old Testament, for the most part, were subordinate figures, and what I mean by that, they kind of laid in the background a lot. But even though they were in the background, there were women like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Miriam, Deborah, Esther, even Queen Sheba that stood out in the Bible. Now, even though they were times when it was kind of patriarchal, you know, mainly men ruled the country and pretty much they made all of the decisions, God still used women.
Right.
And, amen.
amen.
All the time. Amen. And I just, as I went through the Bible, I kind of like took specialty towards the matriarchal genealogy of Jesus. And I won't deal with that in the fact that it is important in terms of, you know, the birth of Jesus. But what I want to deal with that is that how decisive and divisive these women were to get things done that carried the will of God out. Now, Tamar and Rahab, Ruth, and Bathsheba are the four women that kind of get equated with Advent, only in the fact that in the New Testament, they show them, I think in the first chapter, they show them as part of the lineage of Jesus. Now, although these women had common origins, you know, like Rahab was considered a prostitute, Bathsheba, it was said they didn't know whether David had raped her or she had used David to get what she wanted, but whatever, out of that came Solomon.
My Lord.
Solomon was
My Lord.
one of the greatest kings there was. Yeah, Rahab, they call Rahab a prostitute. But Rahab was the one that was instrumental in hiding the spies.
That's right.
Right, remember? And so pretty much by her doing that, she enabled the fall of the other country, and her family was saved because of what she did for the spies. Yeah, we all know Ruth's story.
Yeah. Real.
We all know Ruth's story, right, yes. But pretty much based on her actions and the favor that God showed her, then, you know, she married Boaz, and she was like the grandmother of David, who was in the line of Jesus. But I say this to say that women have always played an important part in whatever God had in store for us. And we didn't do it always in the foreground, but we were always in the background. So whether they were queens, or whether they were commoners, or whether they was considered prostitutes by their villagers, God was always able to work with them.
My Lord.
So the Old Testament, I guess to me, when I look at it, I see them as preparing for the coming of the Messiah.
Well,
So when we get to the New Testament, we see that in Matthew 1-6, the genealogy. Can I get someone to read that for me? Matthew chapter 1, verse 1 through 6. I'm looking to.
The book of the generations of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat Judas and his brethren. And Judas begat Phares and Zara of Tamar. And Phares begat Esrom, and Esrom begat Aram, And Aram begat Amadad, and Amadad begat Nasun, and Nasun begat Salmon, and Salmon begat Boaz of Rechab, and Boaz begat Obed of Ruth, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David the king.
Amen.
And David the king begot Solomon of her that had been the wife of Uriah.
Okay. All right, so do you see those 4 women in there? Now, as reading the Gospels and talking with some of the other Bible scholars, we noticed that in Luke, they don't even mention the women.
Well,
Shame on them.
Shame on them. Okay, because I would like to see them. Okay, now they talk about the virgin birth and all of that. You know, there was a earthly father missing, but I would love to see an earthly mother be missing, and that's gonna really be a miracle, right? Okay, so I don't know why he didn't put the women in Luke, but they are spelled out in Matthew. All right. Okay.
well,
All right, and so from there we move on to the women of the New Testament. I have listed a few. That would not be all of them, but these are some of the major ones that's in the Bible. And while most of us focus on the 12 disciples as the followers of Jesus, we sometimes overlook others who followed Jesus. Of course, there were the crowds that are often mentioned in association with Jesus, but there was others that are specifically mentioned as being Jesus' followers. The Gospel of Luke tells us that there were a large group of women who were also followers of Jesus. In fact, Luke lists the women along with the disciples. And if I could get someone to read Luke chapter 8, verses 1 to 3, it will explain it.
Soon after this, Jesus was going through towns and villages, spreading the good news about God's kingdom. His 12 apostles were with him, and so were some women who had been healed of evil spirits and all sorts of diseases. One of the women was Mary Magdalene, who once had 7 demons in her. Joanna, Susanna, and many others had also used what they owned to help Jesus and his disciples. Joanna's husband, Chusa, was one of Herod's officials.
Okay, so pretty much, even at the beginning in the Synoptic Gospels, it deals with the importance of women in Jesus' ministry. Now, to me, as I was reading, as I went from the Old Testament to the New Testament, I saw a change in the attitude about women during Jesus' ministry.
All right.
Now, here in the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church, we believe that women and men should stand side by side in the struggle for the liberation of black people.
that's right.
We don't
Amen.
put any differences on the men or the women, because we are all strong black people, and God has given us creative intelligence by which we can use to liberate black people.
That's right.
Make it plain.
Now, we also seek to continue the revolutionary ministry of the black Jesus. I'm sorry, of Jesus the black.
Take time, sis.
Okay. Okay, now I just want to ask. We're talking about Jesus, his birth. In the church, we not only deal with his birth, but we also deal with his life and his teaching. Now, the black nation Israel was waiting for this Messiah, because they had been promised this Messiah. But why did they need a Messiah? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why did they need a Messiah? I mean, what was the condition of Israel at that time? Because God kept sending them people to help liberate them. I mean, he delivered them out of Egypt. I mean, at all times he was delivering them. But why were they always needing to be delivered? Can anybody answer that for me?
Well, they were oppressed
They were oppressed.
by their enemies at that time, which were the Romans and the Greeks during that period.
During that period, right.
Mhm.
But before then, I mean, well, the thing is, they was always turning away from God. So even when God delivered them out of Egypt, you know, they were there, you know, they looked towards God for a little while, then all of a sudden they were, you know, adhering to the customs of the pagan nations around them and stuff like that. So God has always tried to show grace to his people.
Right.
There was a time when they didn't want God, they wanted kings. So God gave them kings, you know what I'm saying? Some good kings, some bad kings, and then they finally got David, and everything kind of started going smoothly again. Well, after David, it wasn't long before they turned away from God again.
Right.
So pretty much the reason that the nation Israel was always looking for a Messiah, because they was always turning away from God, and they were always getting themselves in a predicament where they were needing God to come and rescue them. So he had promised them a Messiah. So they were all waiting, you know, and we don't do that. We feel like we can do what the Messiah did. Now the nation Israel, a lot of them was just sitting around waiting for the Messiah to come so that they could be delivered. They were not willing to do for themselves what needed to be done and what God had given them the power to do.
All right. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So pretty much, that's why they were waiting on a Messiah. Here in the church, we are the Messiahs.
Go ahead.
We can do just what Jesus did.
Well,
And pretty much more.
Uh-huh.
The fourth week of Advent is the principle of incarnation. Now, incarnation is a foundation by which God delivers a suffering people out of their bondage. An invisible, disassembled God of cosmic energy and creative intelligence must have a physical body through which to transform a social reality. We must escape from our imprisonments of our negalization in order to create the opening necessary for an incarnation to take place within us.
All right.
We seek to perpetuate the revolutionary spirit of Jesus, the Black Messiah, by becoming a messianic community.
okay, all right.
Okay, hallelujah. Now, I found something that I would like to read to everyone. And it is about the teaching theology of BCN. And it says that if, as Christians, we can believe no more than that Jesus was God who became a man to suffer and die to save mankind from an eternity in hell, then there is no possible escape for us within the framework of the church from our wretched earthly condition. Now, do you hear that?
Yes.
That's saying that if that is what we believe about Jesus, we might as well just give up.
Just give it up.
Right now.
Right.
But
You might need to read that again.
it says, if as Christians we believe no more than that Jesus was God who became a man to suffer and die to save mankind from an eternity in hell, then there is no possible escape for us within the framework of the church from our wretched earthly condition. Okay? So that means as a church we had to change the way we think, we had to change our mentality before we could even think about liberating ourselves. Because we were so caught up in the slave mentality and the slave culture, trying to be like our oppressor, we had forgot, you know, we're our own people. We were glorious. We had a past of our own.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying? We didn't need anyone to tell us what to do because God was with us.
Yes.
But we lost that. We lost that. So we're always constantly looking for a Messiah. But here in the church, we say that Messiahs are born each and every day. You know, to hear might be a Messiah. Might not look like, you know, some of the worst ones you think. The bad ones, those are the ones that you know, grow up to be the Messiah. Right. Amen. Amen. Okay, and so we'll move on. We have current day when the Messiahs. Right. I mean,
Hi, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
That's
Can you
okay.
define Messiah?
Can you define Messiah?
Sure.
Messiah is the term of the anointed one to come and deliver the people from their oppression. So he would be anointed king, anointed one.
person. Did that answer your question? Or were you looking for something else? What are you looking for?
No, you just said earlier, we are all the Messiah.
Right, we're the ones that can help liberate the black nation. We say that Jesus came as the Messiah, but we have the power just as Jesus had. And so what Jesus was able to do, we're able to do now. So based on our theology, we do not feel that we have to sit around and wait for Jesus. We feel that we have the power and the ability and the God createdness to do what Jesus did. Yes.
We have a form of godliness, but we are denying power. We have the power, but we are denying the power.
The power,
We
right.
have a form of godliness, but we are denying the power.
Right.
The spirituality that's within us and the way we have to come together as a people, we have lost our collective vision. We're not focused on nation building.
Right.
So we have to come together as a people. Instead of looking for someone to deliver us,
right.
we have to
It's within us.
focus to make it happen.
I think you
That's
just
right.
quoted that verse, my brother. When they say we're denying the power, that verse is saying that the power is in Christ himself. That's what the power is. But I don't deny that there are many who are anointed.
But I look at it in the context that when we say we deny the power, it's because we constantly see things through the eyes of the oppressor.
Yes.
We constantly looking through the lens of the oppressor. Instead of looking at the achievement of our ancestors, like our sister just stated, and to see that we were building a great nation. But we've been so brainwashed and we've been so deceived, we've been misled, and we've also been miseducated by the oppressor that our minds cannot focus on freedom and establishing a path to achieve our freedom.
Amen.
In other words, Jesus had the ability to contact God, so we also have that ability.
Exactly.
Right.
He said it, they said it in the Bible. These things are not infinitely greater than I. So
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
that is being said and it's true, and we accept it, then we don't need to be convinced that we have that power.
Exactly. So what he can do, we can do.
All right.
Yeah.
But when they spoke of the Messiah, they were speaking of the expected deliverer of the nation of Israel. But we are present day, we are the remnants of the black nation Israel. So pretty much we say that in order to save ourselves, we cannot sit around and wait for someone to do it. We must do it for ourselves.
Thank you.
One point might need to be added is that, you know, we don't believe that Jesus is God here in the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church. So this anointment, this power that Jesus was able to come upon, we feel like anybody can come upon it if you commit to the covenant, the law, and you commit to your brothers and sisters. So the power is available and accessible to all if we can become a people where the power of God can come out of one of us. And that's where our challenge is.
And I think that overall, what it is that in the West, because we practice Western Christianity,
Amen.
God is seen as some abstract person, ideal, whatever, outside of us. But in reality, we are the divine manifestation of God.
Right.
So it's understanding that we in our individual selves, as well as our collective selves, are a manifestation of God. See, Jesus was a manifestation of God. And we are also manifestations of God.
Amen.
So we are divine in nature.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
I hope that helps. I hope that helps.
Dialogue.
Add to the about the disciples, the female disciples. Disciples means students.
Students.
So women were students with Jesus. And when Jesus was given the parables and the disciples were asking why, and he said only a few will know, well, the women were right there all along. in those private meetings.
Right.
So women, the Bible is telling you, even though it's not explicitly saying it, that these women were included.
Right.
Because you have to look at it, people were being oppressed,
Right,
and they were being killed off.
right.
And the text was being controlled by certain people.
Yes.
They were controlling what was going inside the Bible, what was going in, and what was being left out.
Right. Amen.
And this particular people who were controlling the making of the Bible, they didn't necessarily care for women.
Yes,
They
as a matter of
didn't
fact,
care.
as a
Right,
matter of
so
fact.
they had to, the people that were bringing it all together had to put it in there in a certain way, so we would be able to see it years later, centuries later. But black women have always been there.
Yes,
Black women have always had
Through it
sacred
all.
leadership. in
Yes.
life.
Oh, yes.
as a matter of fact,
Where
there,
ours is not questioned.
Until it was changed from a matriarchal society to a
Right.
patriarchal society, women were literally wiped out, just like how they try to wipe out our history from
Right.
society as it is today.
Well,
Same thing.
If we look at our history and the Greeks worship the black woman.
yes,
And unto this day, the Pope goes down to the
Yes.
basement of the Vatican
Right.
and worship the black Madonna.
yes.
But then
That's
the
right.
question is asked, how could a black Madonna give birth to a white baby?
This is good. Can I ask this question? How do you handle this verse? All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that
What
was
verse
made.
is that? Where you coming from?
The book of John, first chapter.
You said John?
John.
That was Jesus talking?
King James.
Okay, but I'm
John,
saying,
That's the
first
problem.
chapter.
This is,
That's the problem. King James.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
Coming from a King James version.
So how do you handle this verse? It's the third verse.
It's not so much the translation that you're concerned about. Is that when you begin to look at the Gospel of John, John has what is called a high Christology. Therefore, John takes his understanding of Jesus back to the Genesis narrative, which is found in Genesis 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. So John has this high Christology. So John is talking to his community, and he puts Jesus at such a very high level in terms of being one with God.
He does.
So that's how you handle that particular text.
right.
John is a master, if you will, of the Greek language. So his understanding, he's going to be tying it very closely with not only what is found in the Old Testament, but also trying to make Jesus compatible and his understanding compatible within the context out of which he is writing and to the audience to which he is writing.
Right.
However, his community does have a good understanding of the Old Testament, which is the Septuagint, which is the translation of the Old Testament into the Koine Greek. So our generation, except here at the Shrine of the Black Madonna, has an understanding of how these texts emerge
Yes.
and the communities out of which they were speaking.
Amen.
So I heard you validate John just now, is that right?
I validate John in terms of this understanding of how he's constructing an understanding of who Jesus was, borrowing from what is written in the Old Testament. Though the community that he's speaking to, they knew Jesus was just like anybody else. Born out of the natural order of procreation like everybody else.
Exactly.
Well, if we look at the Bible in context, and we look at what was written in the Bible and how it was written and who wrote it, and we come to the understanding that the Bible was written by our ancestors. Our ancestors were the ones whose spirituality was used, was distorted and made a religion out of it. And Christianity as a religion is a religion that was forced upon us. What was our religion before Christianity? What did we teach? What did we know before we were enslaved? Christianity was given to us as a package, and it was distorted. And we say Christians, but they're chismos, Christians in name only. When you look at the Bible, look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. How come all the Old Testament had the names of transposed Africans, and the New Testament have English names? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I don't understand. I would like somebody to give me an explanation so that I can get a better grasp of the gospel.
Those are not their original names. Those are just translated names. When you go back to the original language, you'll see what their real names were. but it's our ancestors, and I want the sister to actually get back to our program. Our ancestors are the one who call him Mighty Counsel, Wonderful God.
All right, go
But
ahead.
as you continue to come to our Bible classes and come to our worship service and some of our words on Wednesdays, then you will understand more about what we believe here at the
The main,
Okay, we'll move on.
well,
We'll
let me
continue.
say, the main thing we gotta be careful with separating Jesus from what is considered to be his divinity. Once you separate the divinity of Jesus and he becomes a normal man, then you can interpret those scriptures a little differently. But if you're gonna make Jesus divine, then those scriptures mean something totally different.
Right, exactly.
Okay, all right, sis. Okay, all right.
But this is good.
This is good. But as Reverend Lowe was saying, pretty much women were right there on the forefront during the time of Jesus' teachings. They was there when he was at the cross. They was there at the tomb. You know, as a matter of fact, Jesus used a lot of the women to go back and tell his story and to give his message to the disciples. So pretty much women disciples were just as important and just as prominent as the men disciples.
Yeah.
We have
Just to back up Reverend Lowe, from what I understand, there's a book of Mary.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, in the Apocrypha.
It's
Mhm.
not, it
Yeah,
wasn't
book of
canonized.
Mary.
It wasn't canonized in the Bible.
All right. Okay, so then we can actually move on to the present day disciples. We have disciples right here today. Okay. Yes, even right here in our church, we cultivate a nation.
Well,
A nation of disciples. Amen. Yes, ma'am.
No, we're saying we're disciples.
Oh, yes, we're all disciples. We're all disciples. And it is the recognition of the Jesus potential lying dormant within each of us that provides us with the inspiration to confront together the many difficulties of our earthly life.
Well,
That means it is the responsibility of the church to systematically lead each seeker to self-realization and experience that his own innate Jesus potential, not a personal transportation to heaven after death.
well,
The Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church is first a spiritual nation. We systematically lead each seeker to an awareness of who he already is. A black Messiah only waiting to discover his own inner divinity.
amen.
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 The Messianic community through which God works to liberate black people and the world from their bondages exists when there is a community of seekers who function in the world
Seekers.
exactly the way Jesus did. Creating a sacred community who are special to God, and doing this is the divine mission of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church.
Amen.
So we look for seekers. We look for people who are seeking to and realize that what Jesus did, we are also able to do too. We are in the fourth Sunday of Advent, and the principle that defines that is incarnation. Now, and that goes back to what we were talking about here today, that the Spirit of God is incarnate in us, just as it was in Jesus.
That's right.
And so pretty much that's why we stand on the principle that what Jesus did, we can also do too.
Amen.
And I'm going to end, we're going to be having, 50 years ago, our Holy Patriarch, he unveiled the Black Madonna and Child. Yes.
50 years ago?
50 years. It was rough back then. I wasn't even born. Okay, but church now. Okay, so we will be celebrating 50 years of the unveiling of the Black Madonna in April of next year.
Amen.
This is a very important event. When the Black Madonna and Child was revealed, it changed the lives of black people forever. It gave us a sense of who we really are and got rid of all those lies that was being told to us. Jaramogi, baby Osman, our holy patriarch and founder, he gave us a new theology.
Well.
Right, a respect for ourselves. So pretty much, that is something that is going to be international. I mean, that's something that's important all around the world. Amen. Amen. So if you're out there and you, as you run into people, then you need to let them know about this important event that's going to be happening at the shrines of the Black Madonna, the 50th anniversary of the unveiling of the Black Madonna and Child.
Well.
And with that, I want to leave you guys with something that I found.
All right, good time.
It's a poem. It's called The Messiah.
Yeah, all right.
I am black.
Mm-hmm.
I am oppressed.
Well.
And I seek to end my oppression.
Mm-hmm.
I would strike out against it, but I can neither understand it nor face it. Certainly, I must change both myself and the society in which I live. But the nature of change evades me, and all of my efforts have been in vain.
Well.
As we feel today, so men felt 2,000 years ago, until a child created out of the very substance of God discovered his inner divinity and changed the world. Who can foretell the birth of one who is to be anointed Messiah?
Well.
With power for the powerless, healing for the sick,
Well.
and liberation for those in chains. What I do, ye can do,
Well.
and even more. The kingdom of God is within you. So every town and ghetto is Bethlehem.
Well.
And every child born is of a Black Madonna is a new Messiah. Only waiting to discover his inner divinity. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, let's give up Sister Shakespeare. Okay, everyone stand, extend your hands for a prayer of benediction. Almighty God, thank you for this fellowship, for this coming together of hearts and minds. We ask that you help us internalize the information that we've been given today, that we realize the potential that is inside of us from the Bible class that we have today, and that we do your will just as Jesus did your will here on earth.
Amen.
We have our own road, our own destination, and that we take that. These prayers and our other prayers we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 All right. Oh, George.